when you see a team from afar, and this is something I kind of just learned over the years doing beat writing, and as someone who covered Ime Udoka's Celtics team, which was like a
Yep.
fascinating example of the impact of coaching and timing, where
Right.
Ime came in at a time where they were ready for a voice. Even Brad Stevens admitted that they were ready for a new voice at that point. And you see the way guys talk in hindsight now, like Ime was a huge deal for them. They really, really cherished that moment they got to have with Ime. It really was a kind of a changing point, a turning point for a lot of those guys in Boston and their careers. And they obviously really lamented him leaving. And it's going to be really interesting to see the way he puts his foot down with Houston, because that was a team that was looking for that, like a locker room looking for what Ime was going to do. And then you have the Houston locker room with all the just stuff that kind of comes out on Jalen Green and KPJ and all these guys about what are their priorities? Are they taking things seriously? So how do you think that clash is going to mesh, especially considering the leaders that they signed that will help at least kind of be that coach on the court for Ime?
So the good thing about him coming to the team early in the offseason was that those young guys were able to spend a lot of time with Ime. Like he's been watching Jalen Green's workouts in California. He's spending time with Kevin Porter Jr. He's traveled to go and meet some of these players wherever they are to kind of get to know them on a personal basis, but to also outlay his plans in terms of you have to buy into what I'm doing and you have to buy in pretty quickly because, frankly speaking, no one on that roster now, but no one on that roster previously had ever tasted real winning, right? And so you bring in a guy like Freddie VanVleet, who's won an NBA championship. You bring in a guy, Dylan Brooks, who's been in a lot of playoff battles. You bring in a guy in Ime who's come within 2 wins of an NBA Finals. Those are guys that have pedigree. And
Uncle
for young
Jeff.
player, for, for young players that want to take that next step in their development, you have to be able to be open and receptive to constructive criticism and also
Yep.
be open to advice. And those veterans coming into the locker room, they're bringing that in spades. Uncle Jeff, like you mentioned, he's been everywhere and he's won at a high level. So everything he has to say, a guy like Jabari should listen. A guy like Tari Eason should listen. A guy like Alperen Şengün should listen. Like these players, they want to get better. They've shown over the last 2 and 3 seasons that they have gotten better in areas, but there's still ways to go, which is fine for young 19, 20, 21 year olds. But, look at Jalen Green. Like year one, year two, he's shown flashes. There's still a lot to be desired. And now this summer, it seems like he's taken steps to better himself. He's gone under the wing of Fred VanVleet. He's been working out with him in California, trying to prepare his mind, prepare his body, prepare his game for what figures to be a pretty rigorous training camp and preseason ahead. So I think all things considered, Ime is coming into a situation where they believe in him and everything's going to be funneled towards him because they know that at the end of the day, his goals align with their goals.
I can't wait for your feature that's going to drop in, like, I'm guessing December, where it's going to be talking to all the young guys about all the advice they got from the vets, or just
Yeah.
like maybe just even one just about what Jeff Green told all these guys, like all like the inside tracks clips
Oh
and all
my
that kind of
God.
stuff. There's going to be some gold in there.
No, for sure, for sure. And I
Yeah.
think for just those guys that bring a lot of stories, right? So like for me, when I started covering this team, I was used to a locker room filled with guys like PJ Tucker and guys like Trevor Ariza and guys like Carmelo Anthony that have been there. They've been around the bend for a while. So there's a certain expectation. And Tari Eason told me on Sunday that the locker room is going to be much more mature now. Like these guys are fathers, these guys are husbands, these guys are family men. Like they coming in knowing that this is a place to work. This is not the locker room last year where you guys could goof off after getting blown up by 35 at home. Right? This is not going to happen anymore. There has to be a certain level of decorum and a certain level of structure in place for you guys to go from phase two or phase three, whatever you want to call it.
That reminds me, I forget who it was. I feel like it was an NBA guy where someone was getting criticized. They're like, I'm a father, I'm a husband. And it was like defending their honor. It's like, you could be a dad and still be a piece of shit. Like, that doesn't preclude you from being crap. So that's hilarious. But so, okay, what was it like going from covering those contending teams to the most uncontending team that we've seen in recent years? Like, how different was that? And how do you feel like it's going to kind of
It
revert
was it
back
was a
towards
it
that?
was a huge mental shift, especially when you factor in the COVID stuff. You know how coverage as a whole changed, and we had to adapt on the fly. We didn't have locker room access anymore, and everything was like this on Zoom. And even after things kind of slowed down, just being around those young players that are so bright eyed and aren't used to NBA defenses or how to tailor an NBA offense, you're having to learn the skill set of being an NBA point guard like Kevin Porter Jr. coming into a situation where he's trying to develop on the fly in the middle of a rebuild. That's a tough thing to do. And all these expectations because how James Harden left the franchise and the ruins that he put them in and having to claw their way out of it slowly, it was a mess. And I was used to covering a team that expected to be playing in April, May, and June, right? They had Daryl Morey, one of the greatest general managers, most aggressive, creative this game has seen in a long time. You had Mike D'Antoni. You had guys like Chris Paul, Russell Westbrook, guys that have come through the ranks, and they expected to be, standing when everything cleared at the end of the day. And going from that to a 20-win team, like if you go back to, I think, the 2021 season, at the end of the year, some of those lineups, they were just getting guys off the street that had pulses. Like you could have played. Like they just needed someone that had a pulse at some point. So from that to now having recovered some, you being able to add a guy in Van Vliet that's a champion, being able to add a guy in Jeff Green that's a champion, Dylan Brooks, who's going to raise the defensive level of that team. It's night and days from the dark days of 2021.
Dark days of 2021.